Kalen Ward had never meant to cause trouble. He was the kind of young engineer who tried to be helpful wherever he could, even if no one asked for it. On the exploration ship Aurora Path, where dozens of species worked side by side, he wanted to prove that humans were not only curious, but useful. So when the supply officer asked for volunteers to help reorganize the old storage bay near the mess hall, Kalen stepped forward before thinking twice. The storage bay was dusty, filled with containers from missions long finished. Human crates sat beside metallic pods from alien worlds, each labeled in languages Kalen could not even pronounce. He rolled up his sleeves, tied his hair back, and began sorting everything. It was quiet work, peaceful even, and the soft hum of the ship's engines made it feel like the space around him was breathing slowly. After an hour, he spotted something at the back of the room, an armor rack standing alone. At first, Kalen thought it was just old protective gear left behind by someone. But when he stepped closer, he saw the armor was like nothing from Earth. The dark plates shimmered with deep blue highlights, as if small stars were trapped beneath the surface. The design was both elegant and strong, carved with strange symbols that curved like waves frozen in metal. He moved a hand over one of the plates. Dust covered everything, making the beautiful metal look dull and forgotten. Kalen frowned. Whoever owned this armor had probably meant for it to be stored carefully, not abandoned under a layer of filth. Without thinking, he fetched a soft cloth, some safe cleaning solution, and began wiping it down. He worked slowly, gently, making sure not to scratch anything. As the dust lifted away, the armor began to shine smooth, reflective, almost alive. The symbols glowed faintly under the bay's lights. Kalen admired it for a long moment. He had never seen alien craftsmanship this close. He wondered what species it belonged to. He wondered what battles it had seen, what stars its owner had traveled beneath. He did not know that the armor belonged to Commander Threxia Vorn of the Vascari Dominion, one of the most respected warriors on the ship. He did not know that touching it, let alone cleaning it, was something no one but a chosen partner was allowed to do. He only saw the dust and the need to make things right. By the time he finished polishing the last plate, almost 2 hours had passed. Kalen stepped back, smiling to himself. The armor looked completely different now, proud, bright, almost glowing with its own life again. He wanted to show it to someone, just to share how beautiful it looked. But he also knew this was someone else's property. So he made sure everything was placed neatly on the rack and returned to reorganizing the storage room. He was reaching for another box when the door slid open with a sharp hiss. Kalen turned and froze. Commander Threxia Vorn stood in the doorway. Tall, broad-shouldered, and covered in dark scales that caught the light like polished stone, she was impressive, even when silent. The Vascari were known for their calm discipline, but Threxia was famous even among them. She did not waste words. She did not show emotion. She walked with the confidence of someone who had seen danger and faced it without fear. Her golden eyes moved past Kalen and stopped on the armor. At first, she simply stared. Not a single muscle moved. Not even the plates on her jaw that usually twitched when she was annoyed. Her gaze followed the shine of the cleaned metal, the bright edges, the polished symbols that now glowed clearly. Then she turned her head slowly toward Kalen. The storage bay felt colder. The hum of the ship seemed far away. Kalen swallowed. Commander Threxia. I didn't know this was yours. No response. She only blinked. Once. Very slowly. I found it in the dust, he continued, trying to sound calm. I just thought, well, I thought it should be clean. I didn't mean to. He stopped when Threxia stepped forward. Her footsteps were soft but heavy, like each one carried a weight of history he did not understand. She moved to the armor and lifted one of the polished plates. Her claws grazed the metal gently, examining the surface. Finally, she spoke. Human, she said quietly. Her voice was deep, controlled. But there was something else under it. Something Kalen had never heard from her before. Who touched this armor? Kalen's stomach tightened. I did. Threxia turned her full attention on him. Her eyes widened a fraction, which for a Vascari was equal to a human's shocked gasp. She took a step closer, and Kalen felt suddenly aware of how small he was next to her. You cleaned it? She asked. Kalen nodded. Yes, Commander. I'm sorry if I wasn't supposed to. I. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, stretching between them like a wire pulled too tight. Threxia drew in a long, slow breath. Her shoulders shifted, and for the first time, Kalen realized she looked almost uncertain. Then she asked, in a low and steady voice that carried far more emotion than he expected, Do you know what that means? Kalen blinked. No. Threxia looked at him the way someone might look at a door that had suddenly opened to somewhere dangerous, somewhere sacred. For my people, she said. No warrior may allow another to clean their armor. Not without intention. Not without a bond. Kalen's confusion deepened. A bond? Like a partnership? Her gaze did not waver. It is more than that, she said softly. It is a vow. A trust given only once. A connection that ties two lives together on the battlefield. In honor and in meaning. Kalen's breath caught. Commander, I swear I didn't know. I didn't mean to break any rule. I really was only trying to help. Threxia studied him with an expression he could not read. Something like conflict. Something like disbelief. At last she spoke again. There are no accidents with Vascari ritual. Kalen felt his heart pound. What happens now? Threxia lifted the polished chest plate, its surface shining like a star. That, she said, her voice quiet but firm. And in that moment, Kalen realized something. He had just done something far more serious than clean an old piece of armor. He had stepped into a tradition older than any human nation, and he had no idea where that step would lead. Kalen hardly slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Commander Threxia's expression, those golden eyes filled with something between shock and disbelief. He had replayed the moment over and over, hoping he had misunderstood her words, hoping this was all just a cultural misunderstanding that could be fixed with a simple apology. But deep down, he knew it was not simple. On the Aurora path, hundreds of cultural rules existed, and the crew was trained to respect them. Still, mistakes happened, sometimes touching a sacred symbol, mispronouncing a name, offering the wrong gesture. Usually, the worst consequence was an awkward conversation or a formal apology handled by the diplomatic staff. But this one felt different. This one felt heavy. When morning came, Kalen stepped out of his bunk, splashed cold water on his face, and prepared himself to face whatever came next. He walked the halls slowly, noticing how quiet everyone seemed around him. Conversations stopped when he passed by. Alien crew members glanced at him with curious eyes. Some whispered. Some gave small nods of sympathy, as if he were already in trouble. Word had spread. He didn't know how, but everyone seemed to know what he had done. He finally reached the engineering bay, hoping work would distract him. But as soon as he entered, the chief engineer, a friendly four-armed Ventari named Lixo, waved him over. Kalen, Lixo said with a serious tone, you must report to the Cultural Diplomacy Chamber. Commander Threxia has made a formal declaration. Kalen felt his stomach drop. A declaration? About me? Lixo's four eyes blinked slowly. Yes. And, human friend, I advise calm. The Vascari culture is strict, but also fair. Whatever happens, speak honestly. Kalen swallowed and nodded. His legs felt weak as he walked through the corridors toward the diplomacy section of the ship. The walls seemed colder. The lights, too bright. He felt as if every step pulled him deeper into something he couldn't stop. When he reached the chamber, 2 guards from the Kilari species stood outside. They opened the door for him without a word. Inside, the room was arranged in a circle. Representatives from several species sat around a low table. Commander Threxia stood tall in the center, her cleaned armor plates arranged neatly behind her. Her posture was straight, controlled, but there was a subtle tension in the way her claws rested against her sides. Kalen stepped in carefully. "Commander Threxia, everyone, I'm here." A human diplomat named Mara Renfield rose to greet him. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Kalen, please stand beside me. We will speak together." Kalen nodded gratefully and moved to her side. Mara turned to the group. "Let us begin." Threxia's voice was steady, deep, and formal. "Yesterday, this human cleaned the armor of a Vaskari warrior. This act carries cultural weight and must be addressed through the proper process." Kalen stepped forward, bowing slightly. Threxia's eyes shifted toward him. There was no anger there, only seriousness. Mara spoke again. "Commander, what are the traditional options in such a case?" Quote. Threxia lifted her chin. "There are two paths. The first is the Vaskari, trial of intent. It determines whether the act was done with disrespect, with care, or with courage. Each meaning has a different outcome." "And the second path?" Mara asked carefully. Threxia hesitated for a moment, a rare thing for her. "The second is to accept the act as intentional and binding. But that option should only be chosen by both individuals with full understanding. It is not forced." Kalen swallowed hard. He didn't fully understand the ritual, but he already knew the second option was far too heavy for him to choose without more knowledge. Mara nodded slowly. "Then I believe the trial of intent is the most appropriate path." Kalen glanced at Threxia, trying to read her expression. "Commander, will the trial be dangerous?" "No," Threxia said. "Not dangerous, but difficult. It is designed to test one's truth, not one's strength." Kalen nodded once. "Then, I'll do it." A quiet murmur moved around the room. Threxia studied him for a long moment. "Very well. The trial will begin in 1 hour." Kalen felt his heart thump against his ribs. But he stood tall. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't brave like the alien officers. But if a test could clear things up, he would face it. The crew escorted Kalen to the preparation area. It wasn't a dramatic place, just a simple training room, wide and circular, with soft lights and padded floors. Threxia stood at the far end, waiting. When he entered, she spoke first. "Human," she said quietly. "The trial of intent is sacred, but it is not a punishment. It is a way for us to find truth." Kalen nodded. "I understand, or I'm trying to." Threxia gave a slow exhale. "Your people help others easily. You see something broken or dirty, and your instinct is to fix it. This is your nature. But for the Vaskari, armor is the history of a warrior. It is never touched without permission." "I really didn't know," Kalen said softly. "I believe you," Threxia replied. "But belief is not ritual. The trial must still be done." Kalen took a deep breath. "Then let's do it." The trial began. It was not a battle. It was not a test of fighting. Instead, it was a test of heart, mind, and honesty. The first challenge required Kalen to speak the truth of his intent in front of 3 Vaskari observers. They watched every expression, every breath. He explained why he cleaned the armor because it looked forgotten. Because he wanted to help. Because he respected the beauty of craftsmanship. He kept his words simple and honest. The observers nodded. The second challenge involved puzzle-like tasks meant to test calm under pressure. The Vaskari valued clarity of mind, and they wanted to see whether Kalen acted with discipline or carelessness. He passed by thinking through each step, not rushing. The third challenge was the most difficult. Kalen was placed in a simulated scenario with cultural misunderstandings from other species. He had to choose actions that showed empathy instead of assumption. He had to think before touching anything, before reacting, before helping. Threxia watched silently from the side, her golden eyes following his every movement. When the simulation ended, Kalen stood sweating but relieved. The observers spoke quietly among themselves before facing Threxia. "Commander," the lead observer said. Threxia bowed her head respectfully. Then she turned to Kalen. Her voice was quieter now, almost gentle. "Human Kalen Ward," she said. "You have passed the trial of intent. Your cleaning of my armor is no longer seen as offense." Kalen let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. His shoulders relaxed. But before he could thank her, Threxia stepped closer. "There is one more thing," she said. Kalen looked up. "What is it?" Threxia's eyes softened just a little. "You showed courage today. Not warrior courage, human courage. The kind that faces fear, even when you do not understand what waits ahead." Kalen blinked in surprise. I just wanted to fix the mistake." "And you did," Threxia said. "But you also showed more than you know." Kalen stood quietly, unsure what she meant. Threxia looked down at the armor plates he had cleaned, now restored to brilliance. "For my people," she said slowly, "intent is everything. And today, you revealed your heart." Kalen felt warmth in his chest, relief, gratitude, maybe even a little pride. But he also knew something else. This was not the end. Whatever meaning the armor held, whatever bond it symbolized, the journey between him and Commander Threxia had only just begun. Kalen woke the next morning, feeling lighter than he had in days. The trial of intent was over, the misunderstanding resolved, and no one was angry with him anymore. At least, that was what he hoped. He got dressed quickly, smoothing out his uniform and trying to calm the nervous energy bubbling inside him. But the moment he stepped into the hallway of the Aurora Path, he realized something strange. People were still staring. Not with fear or judgment this time, but with curiosity, almost admiration. A pair of insectoid terrain workers clicked softly when he passed by, giving him a respectful bow. A Kailari guard nodded at him with a slow, thoughtful gesture that meant recognition of bravery. Even a fellow human clapped him lightly on the shoulder. "Nice job on the trial," the crewman whispered with a grin. "Didn't think you had it in you." 9. Didn't think you had it in you. Kalen was confused. It wasn't a big thing, really. "Oh, it was big," the crewman said. "The Vascari don't just give praise easily. Passing their trial? That's huge." Kalen forced a small smile, though his heart already felt uneasy again. He didn't like attention. He didn't want to be seen as someone who did something special. All he'd done was clean armor without knowing the meaning. Yet, now, somehow, that tiny action had grown into something the entire ship talked about. He reached engineering as fast as he could. "Ah, human friend Kalen," Lixo said cheerfully, all four arms waving. Kalen rubbed his forehead. "That makes it sound like it was dangerous. For Vascari, everything ceremonial looks dangerous," Lixo replied. They stand very still. They stare. They speak slowly. It creates tension. Kalen managed a laugh. But Lixo's expression softened. "Kalen, Commander Threxia requested to see you." Kalen froze. "Now," Lixo confirmed. "She waits in the observation deck." Kalen's heart thudded again. The trial was over, so why did she want to see him? He thanked Lixo and hurried toward the observation deck, one of the quietest areas of the ship, where crew could watch the stars through an enormous transparent wall. When he stepped inside, he found Threxia standing alone, looking out into the vast darkness. Her cleaned armor, now fully assembled, rested on a stand beside her. Under the soft blue glow of the deck lights, the metallic plates sparkled like distant galaxies. Threxia turned slowly when she sensed him enter. "Human," she said with a calm nod. "Commander," Kalen replied, trying to hide his nerves. "You wanted to see me?" "Yes." She studied him for a moment, her gaze steady but not harsh. The trial is complete. But there is more I must explain. More you must understand. Kalen stepped closer, his curiosity growing. I'm listening. Threxia's claws tapped lightly against her arm, a sign of thoughtfulness. Among the Vaskari, the trial of intent does not erase the act. It only tells us what the act means. And your actions meant care. I guess that's good, Callan said, though he still didn't fully understand. It is good, Threxia agreed, but it also means the armor recognized your touch. Kalen blinked. The armor recognized me? Yes, Threxia said slowly. Our armor is not alive, but it is connected to our history. The symbols you cleaned hold memories of battles and family lines. The one who restores them earns a place in that memory. Kalen stared at the armor, realizing what she meant. So I'm part of its story now? Yes. Her voice softened. And mine. That made his breath catch. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The stars outside the window drifted like silver dust across the black canvas of space. Callan felt very small, yet strangely important at the same time. Commander, he said quietly, I didn't do anything special. I didn't know what I was doing. You could have been angry. You could have refused the trial. Threxia tilted her head. But why would I? Your actions caused no harm, only misunderstanding. I still caused trouble, Kalen said. Threxia stepped closer. Her height cast a soft shadow over him, but her expression was calm, accepting. Human Kalen Ward, she said. Your people act with kindness before question. To us, that is confusing, sometimes even frustrating. But it is your nature. And I see now. It is a strength. Kalen felt heat rise in his cheeks. I don't know if it's a strength. It is. Threxia insisted gently. A warrior's strength is rigid, but a human's strength bends without breaking. I witnessed that in you. Callan swallowed. He could feel her sincerity like a warm pressure. But before he could respond, the ship's alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. A synthetic voice echoed. Attention, crew. Unidentified vessel approaching. All personnel to stations. To sea. Threxia's posture snapped into alertness. In one swift motion, she took her armor from the stand and began securing the plates across her body. Kalen stepped back, startled by her sudden speed. Commander, what's happening? Possible raider activity. Threxia answered as she locked the chest plate in place. They prey on exploration ships for supplies and technology. That's bad, Kalen said, his heart pounding. Yes, Threxia agreed. But your engineering skills may be needed. Come. They ran through the corridors together. The ship buzzed with urgent movement, crew members shouting instructions, systems switching to defense mode, lights dimming to emergency brightness. Callan kept up as best he could. When they reached the engineering backup station, Threxia placed a firm, clawed hand on his shoulder. You will stay here and assist the team, she ordered. I will go to the front lines. He hesitated. Commander, be careful. Threxia paused. She didn't usually react to such comments, but this time she looked straight into his eyes. Your concern, she said softly, is noted. Then she turned and left, her armor gleaming as she sprinted down the hall. Kalen hurried into the engineering room, joining the team as they worked frantically to prepare the ship's defenses. Screens lit up with proximity warnings. The unknown vessel was closing in fast. He threw himself into the work rerouting power, stabilizing shields, checking auxiliary systems. Sweat formed on his brow, but he kept pushing, refusing to let fear slow him down. Minutes passed like hours. Then, the entire ship shook violently. The lights flickered. Sparks flew from one of the consoles. Lixo shouted. They are trying to disable our engines. Kalen, redirect the backup line. End of instances. Kalen rushed forward, fingers flying across the controls. His whole body trembled with adrenaline, but he stayed focused. He remembered Threxia's words. Human strength bends without breaking. He took a breath and worked faster. Finally, one final connection clicked into place. Backup line restored, he shouted. The room erupted in relieved cheers. But Kalen's relief didn't last long. His thoughts were with Threxia. She was out there somewhere, on the ship, facing whatever threat awaited them. And he didn't know if she was safe. He forced himself to keep working, but deep inside, a new feeling had begun to grow, something he didn't fully understand yet. Something that told him this connection between him and Threxia was becoming something more important than either of them expected. Kalen stayed in the engineering bay long after the backup line stabilized. The ship trembled with distant impacts, each one sending a tiny jolt of fear through his chest. Despite the noise, the crew around him worked with sharp focus. Wires sparked, screens flickered, and alarms blinked red along the walls, but everyone moved with practiced coordination. The Aurora path had faced threats before, just not ones so close, so sudden. Kalen kept glancing at the door, hoping Commander Threxia would walk through it, covered in her shining armor, calm and collected as always. But she didn't appear. Every second she didn't return made him worry more. Lixo noticed. Human friend, she is a warrior, the Ventari said, tapping one of his 4 hands on Kalen's shoulder. Worry does not help her. Work does. Kalen nodded, even though his heart didn't agree. I know. I just hope she's okay. She will be, Lixo replied. The Vascari do not fall easily. The ship shook again, harder this time. Lights flickered. A low vibration hummed through the floor, spreading up Kalen's legs like a warning. A voice cracked through the intercom. Impact on Sector C. Shields holding, but weakening. Sector C. That was close to the front corridor where Threxia had gone. Kalen clenched his fists. He wanted to run after her, but he knew he'd only get in the way. He was an engineer, not a soldier. He had to stay here and keep the systems alive. Redirecting auxiliary power to front shields, he said, working through the panel. The ship's hum steadied. Lixo gave him an approving nod. Minutes passed long, heavy minutes filled with the distant thrum of engines and the occasional jarring tremor. The engineering team continued to patch and reroute systems, but the tension in the room stayed thick. Finally, the intercom crackled again. All teams, status update. Hostiles have boarded the outer docking platform. Security forces are responding. Kalen froze. Boarded? Lixo clicked his mandibles nervously. It happens sometimes. But we will repel them. We. Kalen didn't feel reassured. If they were inside, then Threxia was definitely facing them. He forced himself to keep working. After what felt like an hour, but was probably only 10 minutes, the door suddenly hissed open. Kalen's head snapped up. It wasn't Threxia. 3 security officers hurried in, escorting a nervous group of civilians. Engineering is safer, one officer said. Stay inside and lock the doors. Kalen swallowed, the tension twisting tighter. Then the door hissed again. This time, a tall shadow filled the doorway. Threxia. Her armor was dusted with debris. Small dents marred the plates, and faint marks lined her arms. But she stood straight and steady. Her breathing was controlled, her eyes focused and bright. She looked powerful, intimidating, but not injured. Kalen's chest filled with relief so strong, it almost made his knees weak. Commander, he breathed. You're okay. Threxia stepped inside and allowed the door to close behind her. The raiders attempted to breach the main corridor. They failed. Callan almost smiled until he saw something strange. Threxia's shoulders lowered slightly when she looked at him, as if tension she carried dissolved the moment she confirmed he was safe. "You did well here," she said, her voice a little softer. "I just did what I could," Callan replied. "But you were out there." Threxia raised a clawed hand, stopping him. "And I honored my duty. We all did." Before Callan could say anything more, Lixo approached. "Commander, what is the current situation?" Threxia's expression shifted back to professional focus. "The raiders are retreating. They damaged our outer hull, but they could not bypass our defenses." She glanced at Callan again, eyes lingering on him a moment longer. "Your repairs prevented a full breach." Callan blinked, surprised. "Really? I didn't think—" "You did," she insisted. He felt warmth spread across his face. The alarms dimmed to a soft glow as the ship transitioned into recovery mode. The intercom announced, "Threat repelled. All stations begin stabilization procedures." The crew sighed with relief. Some slumped into seats. Others wiped sweat from their brows. Callan just leaned against a console, letting the tension slowly leave his lungs. Threxia moved closer. "Human, walk with me." Callan nodded, following her out of the engineering bay and into the quieter hallway. The emergency lights had returned to normal, though faint scorch marks lined the walls where the raiders had tried to force entry. They stopped near a wide window overlooking the stars. Threxia stood still for a long moment. Callan waited silently. Finally, she spoke. "You showed bravery today." Callan shook his head. "I was scared the whole time." "Bravery," Threxia said, "is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. Humans are very good at this." Callan looked down, flustered. "I just didn't want anyone to get hurt." Threxia studied him with an unreadable expression. "You thought of others before yourself. That is why the armor responded to you." Callan blinked. "Threxia, what does that mean? You said before that the armor recognized me. But what does that actually mean?" Threxia's claws tapped lightly against the metal of her arm guard, a sign she was choosing her words carefully. "For the Vaskari," she said slowly, "armor represents the warrior's life. Touching it is touching their history, cleaning it." She paused, her eyes softening. "Cleaning it is an act of deep trust. Only one person is allowed to do that." Callan swallowed. "A life second?" "Yes," Threxia replied quietly. "A companion chosen to stand beside the warrior. Always." Callan's chest tightened. "But you know I didn't mean it that way." "I know," she said. "The trial confirmed that. The bond is not forced." "Good," Callan whispered, though he didn't know why part of him felt disappointed. "But," Threxia continued, "the armor still carries your touch. The symbols still respond to the care you gave them. And now, they glow brighter." Callan looked at her in surprise. "Brighter? Why?" Threxia held his gaze. "Because the armor believes you have a place in my future." Callan's breath hitched. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The stars drifted outside the window, sending soft, silver reflections across Threxia's armor. Callan felt his heart beating harder. "I don't know what that future is," he said honestly. "But I want to understand." Threxia nodded slowly, something warm flickering behind her eyes. Callan smiled, small and nervous but genuine. "I like that." "So do I," Threxia said. Before either of them could say more, the ship's intercom chimed again. "All department leads, report to the main briefing room." Threxia straightened. "We are needed." Callan stepped beside her. "Let's go." They walked together side by side, not as commander and engineer, but as two people whose paths had begun to intertwine in ways neither of them fully understood yet. Callan followed Commander Threxia toward the main briefing room, trying to keep his steps steady even though his mind felt anything but calm. Everything that had happened, the trial, the attack, the strange bond forming between them, had left his thoughts spinning like a loose gear. He had never imagined that cleaning a dusty piece of armor could change his life so much. The hallways of the Aurora Path were busy again. Crew members moved quickly, repairing damage, running diagnostics, and checking the safety of every corridor. Sparks had been cleaned away, scorch marks patched, and emergency lights replaced with soft white beams. The ship was healing, and so was the crew. As Kalen and Threxia reached the briefing room, the doors slid open. A wide circular table sat in the center, filled with officers from many species. Screens displayed diagrams of the damaged areas and the raider ship that had fled after the failed attack. Soft murmurs filled the room until the captain, a calm and steady-eyed human named Vieira Holt, stood. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "We have several matters to discuss after the recent incident." Threxia took her place among the commanders, while Kalen slipped into one of the seats along the side meant for technical staff. But when he tried to sit quietly, he found multiple eyes turning toward him. Some nodded at him with respect. Some whispered about the trial. Some whispered about the raid. Kalen slowly sank into his seat, cheeks warm. Captain Vieira continued. "First, I want to acknowledge the courage and teamwork shown by the crew today. Without your quick actions, the ship could have taken far greater damage." Threxia spoke next. "The raiders attempted a targeted breach. Their goal was not random. They aimed for our command lines." The room went silent. Kalen felt a cold chill run down his arms. "Do we know why?" Captain Vieira asked. "No," Threxia answered. "But their movements were precise. Too precise for simple scavengers." A hologram flickered to life, showing the raider ship's movements. Kalen frowned. Something about the pattern seemed strange, almost as if they had been watching the Aurora Path for days. As Threxia continued to explain the tactical situation, Kalen's eyes moved to the glowing armor symbols visible beneath her shoulder plates. They shimmered softly in the lights of the briefing room, almost reacting to her voice. He still didn't fully understand the bond, but he felt it. A pull, a connection that went deeper than words. After the meeting ended, crew members dispersed quickly, heading off to their stations. Kalen remained seated, hesitant to leave, until Threxia approached him. "Walk with me," she said again, quietly. Kalen nodded, following her through the corridors until they reached a small observation balcony, a private one used only by officers. He had never been inside before. Stars stretched out in every direction, forming a soft silver ocean against the dark. Threxia stood with her back straight, but something about her posture was softer than usual. "Kalen," she began. "There is more you must know." He looked at her carefully. "About the raiders, or about the bond?" "The bond," she said. Kalen's throat tightened. "Okay." Threxia rested one hand lightly on her armor. The glow beneath her claws pulsed faintly. "In Vaskari culture," she said slowly, "a life second is not chosen easily. It is not about strength, or battle, or duty. It is about connection. A connection that shapes two lives, guiding their paths together." Kalen nodded, heart thumping. "But the trial showed that my intent wasn't romantic or anything like that. I didn't mean to claim anything." "Yes," Threxia agreed, "and I honor that truth. But the trial does not erase the echo of your action. The armor still remembers you. It still recognizes your touch." Kalen took a small breath. "Does that cause problems?" Threxia shook her head. "No. The bond has changed form. It is not a binding vow. It is an open path." Kalen blinked. "Open path?" Threxia turned to face him fully. "Yes. It means the future between us is not set. It can grow. or remain. Simply a respectful connection. It depends on what we choose. Callan felt warmth build in his chest. And what do you choose? Threxia fell silent. Her golden eyes watched him closely, searching his expression, as if she feared misunderstanding him again. Finally, she said, I choose to learn. Callan smiled softly. I want that too. The tension between them eased like a knot, slowly loosening. But then Threxia added, however, there is one more thing. Something the trial could not reveal. Quote, Callan's eyebrows rose. What? The raiders, Threxia said, were not after our ship as a whole. They were after a specific target. Callan leaned forward. Who? Threxia hesitated, something she rarely did. You. Callan's breath caught. Me? Why me? We intercepted fragments of their communication, Threxia explained. They mentioned a human with the glowing armor mark. They saw you clean my armor. They believe you carry something valuable. When quote. Callan felt his heart race. But I don't. I'm just an engineer. Threxia placed a claw gently, very gently on his shoulder. You are more than you think. And now, you are part of something far bigger. Callan stared at her, stunned. So what happens now? Threxia's gaze softened. Now, you stay close to me. Until we understand why they want you. He swallowed. Stay close. Like protection? Protection, Threxia agreed. And partnership. Callan felt a strange comfort settle in his chest. He wasn't alone. He wouldn't face this new danger, alone. The idea of standing beside someone like Threxia, strong, disciplined, loyal, made him feel braver than he ever thought he could be. They stood together in silence for a moment, watching the stars move slowly past the glass. Finally, Callan spoke softly. Threxia? Yes, Callan? I'm not a warrior. I don't know how to fight or lead. But whatever this connection means, whatever trouble I've pulled myself into, I won't run from it. Threxia's expression warmed with pride. Good. I would not want a life path partner who runs. Callan flushed slightly. We're not that. Not yet. Anyway. Threxia nodded. Not yet. But paths can change. He smiled. A small but sincere one. Threxia rested her hand lightly on her armor again. Together. Together. They stood side by side, not touching, not bound, but connected by something new and unexpected, something they were still learning to understand. Outside the observation window, the stars drifted on, endless and bright, carrying the aurora path toward futures neither of them could predict, but both were ready to face. Together.